Hello. Thank you for joining me, Anand, Teresa, and Rory. And as we sit here, the corporate education market faces a paradox. Arguably, learning has never been more relevant as the shelf life of skills and competencies is eroded by the rapid pace of change in the world of business. But at the same time, this more challenging global macroeconomic situation has piqued concern that learning could fall down or even off the agenda. And so my first question to Rory is, how do we keep learning, this critical activity, at the top?
Okay, thanks for going straight to me. Look, for a long time, people have prescribed learning to the dustbin. It's over, it's finished, and it's one of the oldest things we have. It's one of the oldest professions. And you go back to the Plato's Academy. Not only has learning not died, it's not necessarily a bad thing that we still do it in more or less the same way. So, of course, we have to adapt. But I think it's the other way around. I think more and more people are realizing learning is life. Learning is at our core. Learning is human. So as long as there's humans around, and we've been talking a lot about tech, as long as there's humans and the humans are humans, learning is going to be very much alive.
Corporate education is a business, and it's an investment that needs a return. And I wonder if we're coming back to this macro picture, at a time when skill shortages are causing all kinds of problems for all kinds of organizations, and a tight labor market is being signaled by this great resignation, I wonder how important learning and development is to the retention and attraction of staff. I wonder, Teresa, if you have any thoughts on that.
I will answer your question, but I feel I want to elaborate on yours. But let me answer the question first, and then piggyback on your comment, Rory. So learning is critical for both recruiting and retention. It's interesting, a recent research by LinkedIn Learning showed that among the top 5 reasons of employers joining a company, it is indeed the how much they're going to learn and how much they're going to train. And so it is something that if companies don't pay attention to, as you said, it's something very core, it's going to be very hard to attract the right talent. And that is even more so in a situation where there's real scarcity of certain type of talent. So you sort of need to hire for potential and really put in the effort from the corporate side to make sure you actually get to the full set of skills that you need. And so that journey absolutely requires learning. And when we say learning, it's not only formal learning. As you all know, a lot of this happens on the job. A lot of it happens with collaboration with other peers. So learning absolutely key for recruiting. Learning is also key for retention. It's fascinating how, again, another piece of research around, I think this is from the World Economic Forum, reasons why people leave and what's actually at the cause of the quiet resignation. Number 1 reason, lack of development, lack of career growth. Second reason, your boss. It used to be, a few years ago, it used to be the other way around. So if you want to keep your key talent, it seems like actually working on their development from day one is a must-have. And so for once, I do think it's a pretty strong business case to actually invest behind learning. But if I may, can I just touch on corporate budgets and we're going to a recession. I actually, Rory, love the story of what you guys have been doing in the past few years of just, corporate learning matters and it's important. And we are in a situation where upskilling and reskilling is a structural issue. We all need to be investing in this, corporations and employees. And what I know you've been doing from your corporate university of actually taking internal resources and driving thousands and thousands of employees through, a process of upskilling and reskilling, it's very possible, and it's not that dependent on budgets. They're pretty clever and pretty creative on how you do that. So I like to think about this concept of upskilling and reskilling as something that we all need to be working on, that is a structural issue that both corporations as well as individuals need to put in the time and effort. And regardless of whether there is a recession or not, this is something that we need to be investing our time and effort for the next 20 years. That's my view. Sorry.
I would love to, if I could add a couple of sentences to Rory's point as well. Traditionally, whenever there's a downturn in the market, whether layoffs increase or there's a downturn in the market, there's a recession around the world, what we have seen traditionally and historically is that is the period when learning peaks. The number of people enrolling in programs, whether short programs or degree programs, rises almost in proportion to the decline in the market. People are using that time to upskill, reskill, and prepare for the future. So that reverse trend is very well understood. And so the companies that understand that are going to be successful because they need to prepare for the good times ahead and to retain employees and to hire new employees, offering training and learning opportunities directly addresses the kind of demand that people are looking for themselves. At edX and 2U, we have over 1,000 corporate companies as our edX for Business customers. And I was just in India last week speaking to a number of companies who are using our platform for learning. And what is amazing is that the chief human resource officers and chief learning officers in some of the leading companies completely recognize this. And they are making a full force, a full push on learning and development during this time. And so frankly, those companies that fall behind during this time will not come out of the recession strong and healthy.
There's no doubt you've highlighted learning is a competitive advantage, right? But both for the individual and the organization. And Teresa, you highlighted a really important point about the global workforce being under pressure, constant pressure to reskill and to upskill. And I wonder if you could just explain this concept of lifelong learning, what it means and how important it is.
Thank you for that question. I love it. Well, it simply is a concept of if one wants to stay relevant and stay productive, lifelong learning is something that one as a professional needs to embrace wholeheartedly. And what is it to be a lifelong learning? What does it take? Well, it actually takes a number of, the why you need to be a lifelong learner is, I think, what you started describing at the beginning, right? Is the shelf life of skills and knowledge is actually shortening. It is the fact that our careers are lengthening. And so, frankly, we need to continue to be relevant, not only for our usual 40 years, but maybe we need to start thinking about a productive life that looks more like 50 or 60 years. A great university in the US talks about designing a curriculum for a 60-year professional life. So this is part of the challenge we have as institutions, but as individuals and people in the workforce, we need to understand that the basic conditions are changing. How does one become a lifelong learner? It actually is a combination of things, but one is all about mindset and all about believing that one can learn regardless of the age. And there's ample evidence that this can be done. And it's starting by small steps. It is about actually doing it and taking opportunities to grow. It can come in the form of a credential and on a topic that's very new, but it can come in the form of learning on the job. And again, let's please not pigeonhole learning as something you do in universities, academies, online platforms. It's as we all know, the biggest part of the learning happens on the job. And so by taking challenging projects, as a professional, one can grow and learn new skills and new responsibilities. So it's the mindset, it is trying. And frankly, I hate to say it, but learning requires effort and discipline. So one needs to put in the time and put in the effort to actually learn those necessary skills. And oftentimes, the biggest challenge is the lack of time. And planning it, carving out space for learning is a key component. I love, I'm blanking on her name, the 100-Year Life author, Linda Grattan. She talks about using your free time and your weekend for recreation, literally recreation. So spending and investing time in actually creating the next best you for your professional career. I love that concept. But one I think that is, it's going to be pretty core to a professional survival.
If I could add, when I think of lifelong learning, it actually makes me think, maybe I'm slightly dyslexic, but I think of long life learning. And we don't actually do all the learning in our company for retention. We don't do it to prevent churn, employee churn, turnover, etc. We do it for sanity. We do it for health. We do it for the well-being of the company, for the well-being of the individual, and this organism, this beautiful monster that is the company. And of course, if we do that and then people are attracted to come and work for the company or attracted to stay, that's a happy side effect. But the main reason we do it, and we do it lifelong, is to have a long life, a long corporate life and a long life in general.
It's interesting. Can I add just a note on this? We have at IE many of our MBAs and actually graduate students. When you ask them why they want to stay in a job or why they're actually thinking about quitting, that broader concept of learning and frankly things that may not necessarily be relevant to my job matters a lot. When we look at the 10 best companies to work for from Glassdoor, many of them provide opportunities to their workforce to just learn things that they're interested in. And it may not necessarily be directly related to the skills you need to perform your job. It's a broader sense of help me become a well-rounded person, a more capable person, a more curious and well-versed on themes that are of interest to the individual. So.
I mean, why not give them that? Why insist? Today we're doing corporate strategy, and this is the strategy of the company.
Yeah.
I mean, when actually their sanity is the company's sanity.
Totally.
So teach them, why not? If they want to learn about humor in the workplace, for example, or storytelling, why not?
Why not?
And how?
What we've seen is that it's not just a nice to have. Lifelong learning seems like a discretionary thing. But if you look at where the cutting jobs are, data science, for example, data analytics is one of the areas with the hottest and the largest number of jobs. And that word data science wasn't coined until about 10, 12 years ago. And so the newer skills and newer competencies are coming up all the time. And if people in companies don't reflect on those and don't upskill, they're going to be completely left behind. So this is not a nice to have, it's an imperative. Gone are the days when you could go to college between the ages of 18 and 22 and then work for the rest of your life. That's gone. You have to continuously re-engineer yourself on a regular basis. I'll give you an example. When COVID came, we do an analysis of what kind of courses corporates are taking. And before COVID, the top 15 items that corporates were taking from a catalog into the usual tech skill, AI, machine learning, Python programming, data science, that sort of stuff. But after COVID, what was amazing was among the top 15, 3 new soft skills showed up, topics like leadership and topics like storytelling. And so we had to rapidly go and create a professional certificate program in soft skills. And so the kind of things that corporations need has kept changing over time. We added a new course on how to work and lead remote teams. Nobody had thought about remote work and remote leadership until a year ago. And so we now have a course for that. So this is the kind of thing that whether you're an employee or a manager, you have to continuously look at what is important for the corporation and be up to speed on that.
But it's more than that. It's forecasting, isn't it? And for individuals out there thinking about their future and perhaps preparing for jobs that may not even exist today, where should they be focusing their efforts? How do you decide what you need to be learning today to stay relevant for the future?
The question is, how do we decide the content that we should be teaching? Is
The content.
If learning is increasingly employee-led, how do individuals themselves decide what they should be learning and what is relevant to their future, given that that future is so unknown and so unpredictable?
Well, to begin with, you could be preparing them for the VUCA world, the volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. And the thing, we have a great luxury in Telefonica in that we have all these employees. So for many years, I worked in the business school world, and often we designed the greatest programs with the greatest faculty, but we wouldn't have any students. We'd spend all our time trying to get executive participants, and you'd have 3 people turning up for a course. The great thing in the company is there's always participants that want to do a course. It's great. And they know they're going to have a good time if they come to one of our Universitas courses. And so we can iterate, we can trial and error, we can offer different courses, and we can talk about the future, we can talk about what's potentially lying ahead, and then say, hey, what do you want to learn? What are your strengths? Let's enhance them. What are your weaknesses? Let's fill those gaps. And more, coming back to Anand, it's right. You said the soft skills, but I'd like to say that it's the life skills which people are asking for. I'm not saying it's not important, the technical skills in programming and those sort of gaps, but I think people are pretty intelligent. They can work out what they need, what sort of food, metaphorically, they need to nourish their intellectual brains.
The answer might be even closer to us. In the past, education was very supply-oriented. Look, I've been teaching at MIT for 34 years, and in most universities, the way we do things is that we decide what we want to teach, and we teach it. But today's world is so driven by peers. So what we do, for example, is we know what cutting-edge learners are looking for. We know what they're searching for on our platform, on a MOOC platform. And when we talk to a company, oftentimes the chief human resource officer of the company will ask me, so what should we be teaching our employees? I was at Cisco a few months ago, and I was asked this question. And so I tell them, look at your bleeding edge employees, look at what courses they do. So 6,000 of Cisco employees were already learning on edX, and they were taking the kinds of courses in digital supply chain management. And we just look at the kinds of courses employees are taking, and then make sure that the broader group of employees gets the same kind of courses. So the key idea is that select employees from a company are already searching on the web and looking at cutting edge content. So what human resource teams need to do is figure out what are those people looking for, and then make sure those very cutting edge courses are available to the broader group and to the broader population company.
I think, just if I may add my 2 cents to this question, so what should an employee learn next? The beauty of big data is that actually it really depends, and it can be a personalized choice. It depends on your previous skills and on your aspirations, but it also depends on what's the company demanded. Just very recently at a CLO meeting we had at IE, we had a fascinating discussion on the topic of providing some transparency on the skills that were most demanded, and actually on having real visibility of what were the skills that were offered within the company. And so those are pieces of information that exist, that could be made available. And if someone is actually interested in progressing towards this kind of function or this kind of area, it provided unique visibility of what were their skills they needed to gain, given the direction that individual could actually take. So it's very early days, but I do think it's a very exciting time, both for employees as for employers. The one thing I will just add is oftentimes as an employee or as a learner in general, the choice of what you can learn next and what's a skill, it's overwhelming. And I personally, and we believe, especially in the area of lifelong learning that I happen to lead, that there needs to be space for exploration. There needs to be space for things that you don't know you might like, and a safe environment to say, hey, maybe there's something there that can open up a new avenue for my career in the next 5 years. And so both corporations as well as educational institutions need to be more thoughtful about how do we integrate and provide choices for those people who don't necessarily know what's the next skill they need to learn.
Mm. And Anant, this may be your secret sauce, but among all your platforms, you presumably have all this data. What are the top courses people are taking at the moment? Where is the real interest among the individuals?
I think there's two ways to look at it. One is, what are the topics? And second, and probably more important, is what are the properties of these courses in general in terms of duration and pacing and so on. So in the past, and certainly well before the pandemic, long-form programs like degrees, whether it's 2-year MBAs, 1-year MBA, or 1-year degrees, were kind of the norm. But what we saw was a gradual move towards these alternative credentials, which is a terrible name for much more short-form, skills-focused, asynchronous learning. And so, particularly after the pandemic, people want to be able to upskill quickly. They don't have a year or 2 years to spend getting upskilled and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. Instead, they want short-form programs. And so several years ago, we launched several such certificate programs, professional certificates that you can complete in 2 months on topics like learn AI and machine learning from Google, or learn or a micromasters from MIT in data science, or a microbachelor's. So just like the word implies, a micromasters is about 25% of a master's degree that can be completed in 3 to 4 months. And you get a credential called a micromasters or a microbachelor's from Harvard or from Cambridge. Cambridge has a micromasters University of Cambridge has a micromasters on edX in professional writing. And so many of these topics, whether these are soft or human skills or tech skills, the shorter form credentials have become incredibly popular. So that's one answer to your question. The second one is, what are the topics? And I would say there are 2 categories of these topics. One are what you might call the tech skills, or kind of the data skills. So data science, machine learning, AI, very popular. Python programming is everywhere. Python is the single most heavily searched term on the edX platform. So we have 46 million learners on our platform, and they're searching. So we just look at what people are searching for, and we can rank order what are the most important topics. The second set of important things are soft skills or human skills, things like critical thinking, writing, presentation skills, storytelling, negotiation. These have become incredibly, incredibly important, particularly after the pandemic. And so it's a combination of these soft skills and tech skills that are being really valued in the workplace today.
And you picked up on a really interesting point. It's this shift towards skills-based learning rather than perhaps formal degree qualifications. And I wonder if that chimes with what you're seeing at Telefonica and maybe the attitudes that you have towards a longer form, presumably more costly formal qualifications, or if there's increasingly room for these shorter courses that can be taken online on platforms like this.
So I don't know. I mean, for years we've been saying these expensive $60,000, $100,000 degrees at big schools, especially in North America. I've been talking about the end of those, and yet, well, I sent my kid and he's off, destroying my bank account, doing one of those just things, doing engineering. And I don't know, I think there's a space for those. But it was back to what Anand alluded to when he was talking about, sure, it's just a different thing. You've got that time scope from 18 to 24 when you might go to university, but then you take a job, and guess what? Your job's got nothing to do with what you studied. And guess what? Each day at your job, you don't know what's going to hit you. In the past, you studied something, and then you did a job in that something, and every single day, you had a toolkit of your learning, and you knew how to solve a problem, like building a bridge or something like that. And today, you go to work, you have no idea what's going to hit you, so you realize you need to keep learning. And whether it's a hard skill like Python, or a soft skill, or something even more general, or even something not connected to your work, it makes you a more holistically healthy individual. So I think all of the above is important. I don't think they should be conflated, your university degree and the lifelong learning, or the learning for a long life. It's just great that it's all learning. I think every single person in this room is somehow connected to learning, and it's just great that learning is everything now. It's not just, something else that happens in life. It's everything that we are. And I always say, when people say, oh, you're the chief learning officer in the company. No, you are the chief learning officer, and you're the chief learner. Everybody, it's like the Je suis Charlie or I am Spartacus moment. Everybody should stand up and say, I am the chief learning officer. And we can all drive it. And leadership is driving it for yourself, but also driving it for all the people around you. And helping people, have you considered doing this course? Have you considered reskilling or upskilling on something you've never considered? That in itself is leadership, and it's good news for everybody with anything to do with learning.
I completely agree, Rory, that we shouldn't view it as an either or. I think the future is going to be about modular, stackable credentials, where you can take these short form programs to upskill very quickly. And so, for example, if you complete a MicroMasters in data science from University of California, San Diego, you can complete that in 4 to 6 months. At the same time, in the future, if you decide, I want to get a full degree in data science, you can apply for a degree in data science, a master's in data science, and the credits that you've accumulated for the MicroMasters will apply towards your data science degree, and you can accelerate the data science degree. So it's not an either or. You can take these modular programs, complete them, and that may be enough for people. But some people who want to stack them up to a full degree, they can do that too and get the full degree. So we shouldn't think of this as either or. We should think of it as stepping stones that can build upon each other, leading to, more holistic lifelong learning.
But for that to happen, we all need to get our act together and speak the same language, don't we? And then.
Absolutely. And so there are a number of universities that have come together, and at least within the university. So, for example, you can do the MicroMasters in professional writing from a University of Cambridge. And if you get admission to University of Cambridge, they will accept the credit from that program towards the campus degree. And so we have 60 MicroMasters programs from 30 leading universities around the world that are all doing this. And it's becoming more and more of a movement where people are recognizing these micro-credentials towards credit at their own university.
Yeah.
Teresa, as someone who does work at a university, what scope do you see for greater partnerships with platforms, online platforms in particular, that were once held as sort of disruptors of university system, of the traditional model? Are you friends or are you foes?
So we, as an institution, are an open institution to innovation. We've been working with them from the day they were born. So Coursera, we've been partners with Coursera, we're partners with TU, we're partners, and it's an absolutely important source of innovation, and it's a source of ideas, and it's a source of, together doing more. Ultimately, we are about supporting those learners to actually go through the exploration, to the real skilling, to getting their jobs and getting their promotions, and we will, we will do what it takes. It's been a great source of collaboration, and they play a role in the learning experience. We don't see them as, a competitor. We see them as a complement. As an example, to the point and the example that Anand was talking about. So we have a Business Essential Master Track. You can start your a small credential. If you actually like it, you can then take those credits and join a full master. And that process should be smooth, transparent, and frankly, adapting to the timing of the learner. So those are some of the things they're working on, and they're excited to continue challenge our boundaries as a, as a traditional university. And frankly, I will remove traditional as a university, because there's not a lot of traditional to it. There's some, but not in the pedagogies and how we think about staying, in the cutting edge of what learners need to learn to be actually effective in the workforce.
So we're really talking about unbundling, a bit like you may have with sort of cord cutting, the traditional cable programs being disintermediated by platforms where you can access anything you want from a variety of providers. But as you pointed out, that hasn't necessarily happened yet, and there is still somewhat of a distinction between traditional forms of education and the online platforms. And I wonder, what are some of the barriers to greater integration and to realizing that future, and that you talk about in terms of having these stackable credentials that can be mixed and matched and sliced and diced?
Are you asking me or Anand?
Open question.
Sorry?
Open question.
Yeah, happy to address that, Seb. I think at the end of the day, education should be learner-centric. For too long, education, I can speak about that certainly as being a professor myself at MIT for 34 years. For too long, education has been supply-centric, where a learner comes in, they become a captive audience member at your university, and then you hold them for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And however, if you ask a learner what they want, many of them want to have education embedded within their lives. And so when a learner is working at a company, let's say Banco Santander or Telefonica or any one of the great companies, the odds that they can go back to university for 1 or 2 years is very hard. So they want to keep learning. And in order to keep learning, what they really are looking for is skills-focused courses, and they want more of a buffet-style model where, hey, look, I want to take this program from IE. I want to take this other program from Universitas Autónoma Madrid or Valencia or from Carlos, University. And so they want to take the best from a number of places, but we don't have a system today. We don't have a system today where they can integrate those credits. So we launched a program called Micro Bachelors, where the universities participating in that are agreeing to have their credits accumulated on a single transcript. We have a transcripting partner, Thomas Edison State University, and these micro bachelors can be taken from a number of universities, and the credits accumulated towards a bachelor's degree in a central place. Teresa talked about how the whole credit transfer and so on should be a seamless process. So we work all of that stuff. And as far as a learner is concerned, they complete a micro bachelor's, the credits appear on a university transcript, and they can accumulate them. But I think there's so much more we can do to make this learner-centric. Right now, it is just not.
The learner-centric, it obviously really resonates with me. The idea about the platform, and I don't represent a university, I represent a company, and I represent learning in that company. What drives me nuts is when all the conversations are about the platform. Of course, the platform's important. Of course, we have to get it right. But you go to so many committee meetings, and it's which platform, and is the platform going to work? And okay, we'll try to make sure we get the right platform, but there's more than the LXP. There's more. it's like we're trying to nourish beautiful tropical plants. Now, the platform might be I don't know, maybe it's the soil. I mean, I'm making this metaphor up as I go, or maybe it's the greenhouse. There's far more to it than the platform. Now, for half of my career, I worked in business schools and universities. And frankly, I think the universities, they obviously have to get the platforms right and adapt and embrace the technology, but they got to think about the faculty, because many of the faculty are stuck in another world. And many of the universities are stuck in a world where they have these tenured faculty and they're untouched. They feel like nothing can touch them and they can do whatever they want. So it's not the learner that needs to adapt, and they do in this case, but it's also the faculty. I heard this story once about professors talking about other professors. They said, yeah, faculty at our university, and it certainly wasn't IE, are like those mollusks. You're thinking, where's he going with this? Those little sea creatures that they're born and they float around and they use their brain to find a rock to cling onto. That's their life cycle. They find this rock. And as soon as they attach to the rock, what do? They're hungry. They eat their brain, because they do this. They eat their brain because they don't need their brain anymore. They've anchored, and the rest of their life, the food is going to come to them. And it's a bit like that with faculty.
Well,
they do great things.
Rory, this is the first time I've been compared to a mollusk.
Some faculty, and they do great things, great paper, and then they get tenure, and then that's it.
and they eat their brain. Well, hopefully there's still institutions where there are checks and balances, and that doesn't happen.
And there's some institutions like IE which are growing, which are trying so many different things, and are vertical integration up, integration down, horizontal integration, undergrad. I'm sure you're going to have primary school soon.
Just you wait.
It's fantastic. And there's other institutions which haven't adapted like that.
But to me, I want to go back to your question, Seb, and building on some of the comments that both Anand and Rory mentioned. What are the obstacles for that stackability, for lifelong learning to be a reality? I've been privileged to be part of a group led by the Spanish government to think about how do we think about upskilling the workforce at large. And I do think if I have to pinpoint one thing, and what you talked about really resonated with me, it's really not about the platforms. It's not about, there's a lot of noise around the learning. The day I think we agree and all speak the same language about what competencies do you need. It's about competencies. It is about the unit of exchange. So let's be clear. What is it corporations need? How do you define it? And then once there's clarity around that, frankly, some of the tech companies might provide that on their day-to-day work. And so when you hire from some of the big tech, you can check the box because there's clarity around that competency. When we recruit to our undergrad and masters and exec ed programs, we can actually have a clear understanding of whether they come with the necessary baggage to be able to actually take full benefit of the programs. So to me, if I had to pick one thing that I would really try to work all together with policymakers as well, is really let's create clarity around what are the competencies that we want to deliver, how do we grade them, and how do we all work in the same direction, speaking the same language, and therefore, just the competency that you've acquired at Telefonica, it's okay when you start your master's in big data. On what competency? Well, data management. Okay, well, let's really understand what's in there, and let's actually make sure we have a way to validate it. So until we get there, very hard to imagine a more open environment where actually lifelong learners can truly stack their knowledge and their skills. And I think this is one of those things. I know there's a number of European efforts that are great, but hopefully they will not take the European pace. But it doesn't look like it's any different from any other previous experiences. But I do think it's one of those things that, as we think about reinventing education, we need to put all the relevant stakeholders and agree on what is it you need as corporations. I'm looking at you, Rory, and how Anand and ourselves can work on, okay, let's just be very clear how we can get there. And there's many options to get there. So that, to me, is a core of the thing that we all need to address.
And by the way,
taxonomy.
There's one great thing that happens in Europe, and you might think this isn't a great thing, but we can't just fire people. So in Twitter, you can just fire half the staff overnight. We can't do that. We can't just send them off to the knackers. Why is that a good thing? It's a good thing because we have all these people. We have these loyal employees, and they might have been in the company 10, 20, 30. I sometimes teach people that have been in the company for 40 years. It's great that they're still in the company. It's really great. It's not a liability, it's an asset, as long as we can have them embrace learning.
You know, if I might add to that, you know, Teresa, you brought up that we need multi-university collaboration. But I would say even a single university can do a lot. So I'll give you an example of what Valencia University in Valencia in Spain is doing. So a single university can create unbundling. So what you can do as a university is create these modular programs like professional certificates or micromasters, microbachelors, where learners anywhere in Spain or around the world can take the programs. No admissions applications, with one click they're enrolled, and they can complete a micromasters. They unbundle their programs and make it available. And then if the learner gets admission into the university, they accept the credit of their own programs back into their own degree programs. So at least let universities take the first step, which is completely 100% under their control. Spanish universities are already doing this. And many universities in Amsterdam, UK, US, Germany, they're all doing this. And so as a start, if you're a university, just start unbundling and do it yourself. There is no regulatory body that will prevent you from doing it because your colleagues are already doing it. And then you can talk about the harder work of integrating credits from multiple universities. At least start with your own university. You can do it tomorrow.
Couldn't agree more. And at IE, you can join the Data Science Bootcamp. It's free for everyone. You complete it. You actually pass the exam. You can then move on to the Master in Big Data with that credit taking into account. Exactly. I couldn't agree more. Now we just need to do that at scale and across many more institutions.
Why do you think more institutions haven't done this? As Anand said, they could do it tomorrow if they wanted to. What's holding back higher education?
Anand will have probably a better view because he's had way more conversations with other universities on this very topic. I think the things that hold back is that you know, the right of admissions and the right to judge whether someone is, you know, well equipped to take full benefit of a degree or a master is something that is very hard to give up. And so opening a small door to starting the dialogue of exactly what are the competencies that you want to see and how else could we prove to you that those competencies have been acquired and therefore you can admit them to your master's degree. That process may feel for certain institutions like they're giving up a highly treasured decision, I think. But Anand, I'm really, really curious. You've spoken probably with hundreds of universities on how to drive that process. So what is your take? Why is it so hard to do it within the university?
We do have, between edX and 2U, we do have 250 university partners, including the IE and including a number of universities in Spain. You know, why is it hard to do things in universities? A lot of the universities that are cutting edge, that are innovative, are very quick to do these things. Delft University in the Netherlands is one of the most innovative universities in the world. And they were among the first ones to launch a MicroMasters and unbundle in energy and solar engineering. So I think it goes back to the university. Some are innovative and some are just not. And I think the universities that are not innovative, where, I love Rory's example of mollusks sitting on a rock. A mollusk sitting on a rock, and then you have 1,000 mollusks all aggregated, holding hands and feeling very happy and singing Kumbaya on the rock. You have no interest in doing anything innovative and new. But if you're an innovative university and you want to grow and expand and be learner-centric, then you are very excited about trying new things. So I think it's just innovative universities will do new things, and others will not.
And I think we're coming up to time. I'd like to open it to some audience questions. But before I do, I wonder if I could ask each of you for some predictions. We're talking a lot about the reinvention of higher education. And I wondered if each of you might share your thoughts on how this sector might change, most significantly, maybe in the next 5 to 10 years. I'll put you on the spot.
How education might change in 5, 10 years? I see a world where actually the doors of universities open up and allow people who are willing to put in the effort and to actually craft their own journey with a lot of the things that Anand mentioned. So if we can truly think about things that are modular, and when people at 18, but also at 28 or even at 58 can come and take this one step at a time, I think that might be a pretty revolutionary state of education. And I'm not necessarily saying that's where IE is going, but it's certainly one of the changes that I think will be a true revolution in our space.
I mean, I think learning needs to embrace this technology, but not become it. And it could be that more of us in time will actually go back to a physical campus. I know what I want to do next. I mean, when I went to university, I studied geology. What's that got to do with what I do now? I learned nothing other than how to go to class with a hangover for 5 years. I mean, that was in Scotland, so maybe it's not. I want to go back to university. I'd love to go back. And I don't mean night school. I think it'd be great to go back, Freshers Week, and study. Once the kids have gone off to school and my wife has left me again, I'd like to go back to school.
It's always dangerous to make predictions because sometimes they can come true. So you better watch what you all say. But I'm still trying to recover from being characterized to a mollusk. So so one day Rory and I are going to arm wrestle about it. But I think 5 to 10 years from now, I'm pretty confident that one thing will happen, and that is as universities recognize that they have a role to play in education, not just for learners on campus, but to understand that they have a role and an obligation, an opportunity, a revenue opportunity, and a mission opportunity to educate and provide lifelong learning to people outside the university. And the only way to reach those people is frankly online. There's no way that if I'm 35 years old, there's no way you're going to bring me to university for 3 months or 6 months when I have 2 kids and a job. So in 5 to 10 years, I believe most universities will be doing online work and outreach to people outside the university. And at the same time, they will also be doing blended online learning on campus. In other words, every campus student will be doing both in-person learning on campus and online learning on campus in a blended way, whether they do one course online, one course in person, or whether the same course is a blend of online and in person. I believe in 5 to 10 years, universities will be much more integrated into these forms of digital learning that Teresa and Rory and these organizations are already doing in a big way.
May I add something? Talking about integrated learning. Right now, when we finish this forum, you know what I'm going to be doing? I'm going to be sitting with 55-plus-year-old and 18-plus-year-old all in the same class. We've been in a journey together that ends in December. It's about bringing not only the online and the face-to-face, it's bringing different generations around the same topic. And it is fascinating when you discuss, things like sustainability or the evolution of AI or the metaverse with two different generations, what comes out of that. So early days for us as well in combining different experiences, but I think certain universities were uniquely placed to create just an amazing learning experience by bringing in generations, not only the formats, but so very excited about how that is going to pan out. We'll tell you, I'll share it as we continue experimenting.
Yeah, we forgot to talk about the metaverse, and I'm sitting there waiting to embrace it, and I don't quite know how to yet. So anybody that can help me with that, I'd be more than happy to listen.
That's the panel after this one.
Excellent. Good segue.
Now, we've spoken a lot about putting the power in the hands of the individual. So if anyone has any questions for our panelists, please don't be shy. Please do raise a hand. We can't really see you, but we do have a few minutes left. Anyone feeling brave?
I'm sure we have a question from Pepe Ariccio in the audience there. Who's Sorry, Pepe, could you introduce yourself first, please?
Tus experiencias y tus historias.
Okay, just
Just say it and we'll repeat it.
we need to hear it for the streaming. I think the providers, again, the tech providers and the platforms and the universities have the answers. We might have the need, but...
Can we repeat the question, actually?
The question was, is the corporate sector further ahead of higher education in terms of the reinvention of education, in particular the unbundling of skills?
I don't think we can do it ourselves. We might have a need, and we might not actually know what that need is yet. But as Teresa said, we need to work in an ecosystem and collaborate.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Rory, that I don't think either the corporates or the universities are ahead in this case. The corporates feel a burning need. The corporates are talking about a skills gap for people that are coming out of universities, and that gap needs to be filled. And so I don't think anyone is ahead here. We just need to solve it. And I suspect it will take public-private partnerships with corporations and universities to make it happen.
Yeah, we do, at IE, we do, this is a topic that is, core to a lot of our thinking when we think about the future. There's a recent piece of research that has been published around what's the skill gap between university curriculums and what the workforce is demanding. And so there was an analysis of 13 million job postings in several countries in Europe and 500 syllabi, and really understanding sort of how are universities reacting to the demand of specific skills. And as you can imagine, the universe of universities was very wide. But mostly, it's a couple of themes. Number one is not fair to say that universities are eating their brain stuck on a rock.
Some faculty.
because there some actually some institutions are pretty close to what the market is demanding. So the idea that skills belongs to credentials and universities are not capable of adapting to that, I think it's not entirely true. And once again, one needs to segment the population. The second idea is, which I felt jealous but also surprised, it looks like the UK is doing a pretty good job at actually having a pretty close gap between skills demanded in the workforce and what is being taught. So anyway, some evidence that this gap from a university corporation can be closed. I think we all just need to get a lot smarter at understanding faster what is it that's needed so that we can accommodate that. But that can only happen, again, if we all speak the same language.
And in terms of opportunity, we spend so much, and we haven't talked about consultancies today. We spend so much, not just on platforms, not just on executive education, partnering with universities, but on consultants, far more on consultancies. And usually because it's not that we don't know how to do something, we just don't have the confidence to do it. So if we have the right conversations with the providers, the platforms, and the universities, we don't have to spend nearly half of that money that we spend on nameless consultancies. Consultancies should remain nameless.
Any other comments? Anything you may have disagreed with?
Yes, hello. I'm a freelance journalist from Germany covering higher educational topics. So I was luckily shown around the Telefonica University this morning, and I'm very impressed by it, by the way. And Rory mentioned that they used to call it Top Gun before they, in the old days.
We're showing my age, saying it's like Top Gun. Everybody wants to go.
There's a new Top Gun, and it's still great. And I know my age is the same. I know the old one, and I liked it very much. What I'm going to ask is, I'm puzzled by all the studies that telling us people want to develop, people want to learn. Lifelong learning is a reason why people leave their jobs if they can't develop. On the other hand, I know many, many people that say, oh, I have to go to this compliance workshop, and I have to, my boss sends me somewhere, and I have to learn something, which is like, I'm not good enough, I need some fixing, I need to be brought up to speed, up to date. So the question is, do you see a chance to make corporate learning more attractive, more sexy in the future, and how?
Well, everything we do is about making it attractive. Everything we do is about it not being some kind of mandatory course. And I don't even want HR saying, well done, you're being sent to a course, and the person can't be bothered. In fact, we're seeing that learning is one of the main reasons to come to work. Who would have thought of that? You don't come to work to do work. You actually come to this office, this campus we're at today, to do a course. And by creating that sort of environment where you're going to learn, you're going to feel enriched, even physically. So, you know, it's well-being and wellness as well, is what it's all about. And that's where we started off by saying, this is about being wholesome and sane. And if you don't want to be wholesome and sane, then actually we don't actually want you to come to work. I mean, just go away.
Maybe we have time for one more.
Thank you. I wanted to build a little bit on your answer before about that there's a gap between what companies needs and what universities provide. But still, I see that there's some contradiction. But because when you want to get into a company, then they ask you for an official title, and they're like ignoring some of the learning that other providers that are unofficial or not proper universities are providing. So this, how do you see companies getting and adapting to these new education providers? Like, have you seen a change in the trend of companies accepting people from non-official education?
Yeah, I
yeah,
can
we've
answer
Is the
that.
stigma being reduced about these online platforms?
Well, I was going to answer the other different type of providers, of course. I mean, working with well, first of all, look at IE working with journalists. Heaven forbid, working with journalists, Financial Times, and then universities and business schools working with art, drama, creative types. That's why these corporate universities are very much the university of life rather than just business, finance, accounting, marketing type schools. So of course we need to embrace, hire creative writers and communicators and comics, comedians as part of our faculty pool. And that answers your previous question. That's why people want to come, because it's not just accountancy.
To the question about how people how do we get employers and managers to accept these newer credentials? I think the answer is very simple. What we are seeing on edX, for example, is many of the managers, all the way to CHROs and CEOs and their families, they have already taken these courses, and they're encouraging their employees to take the courses themselves. And so, as more and more managers are themselves learning, they're asking their employees or prospective employees, "Hey, I want you to go do this because I benefited from this myself." So that's one thing. The second thing that we do is that even though we are a platform company, as edX with 46 million learners, our credentials are provided by some of the top universities in the world, like whether it's IE or MIT or Harvard or Oxford or TUM in Germany. These are all the top name credentials. And so I don't think you have to have these newer forms of learning have credentials from unknown places. These are credentials from known places that should resonate with industry leaders.
I'm being urged to get off stage, but if you do have any more questions, please do come and find us this afternoon. We'd love to carry on the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Anand.